I'm worried I'm getting dumber, because I used to read a lot, and now I just watch a lot of bad movies, bad TV. So I'm trying to split the difference and watch more documentaries. Figure maybe I'll learn something that way. But that's not working, because the only kind of documentaries I get myself to lock in on are the true crime ones. We got any true crime fans in the room? Give it up. I saw the white women. I knew. I know the fandom. Me and white women keeping the true crime industry alive. I think my problem is other documentaries, I watch them and I start worrying I'm not doing enough with my life. You know, I always make these documentaries with people who are impressive, inspirational. Whenever I'm watching a true crime documentary, I'm like, maybe it's okay, I'm not doing a lot with my life. You know, I'm not doing any good, I'm also not doing any harm, so maybe that's fine. I think the only thing I'm learning from true crime documentaries is that I could never be a serial killer. And for the type of white guy I am, it's nice having that enforced, you know? I am the quiet, keeps to himself type, I understand that. You know, but I could never do what those guys do. I was watching this one, and the guy, he chopped his victim up, and he put them in a suitcase. And I know for a fact I could never do that, because I am terrible at packing. Are you kidding me? Fit an entire body in one suitcase? No way. I'm going to fill a carry-on bag too, probably a backpack. I'm just not a Tetris champion. Also, I always forget something. You know, I can just imagine myself standing there next to the shallow grave going, where is that other foot? I am positive there were 2 feet. Surely it didn't just get up and walk off on its own. And I also know I couldn't be a serial killer because I hate cleaning, right? And that's 50% of serial murder, if you ever think about it. You think about the glamorous parts, right? You know, it's like, yeah, it's 50% stabbing, but 50% scrubbing. You gotta get all that DNA out of there, or you don't get to be a serial killer. You just are a one-hit wonder. Those guys are losers. They don't even make documentaries about that. You know, I have never gotten a security deposit back. There's no way. No way I'm getting away with murder. You know? I figure I would probably be a murder-suicide just out of practicality. I'd be looking around like, I don't want to bleach all of this. Let's just wrap this package up and put a bow on it. You know? I know serial murder is a dark place to start, but as was mentioned, I'm from Milwaukee. And that's kind of one of our things. We got the 3 things we're known for: beer, cheese, Jeffrey Dahmer. And that is a pretty accurate representation of my city. There is something about life there that makes you either want to drink your feelings, eat your feelings, or eat your neighbors. Which is why you want to look out for anyone who's sober and lactose intolerant in Milwaukee. Because how are they quieting the demons? I've grown up in Milwaukee my whole life, and I do think the Dahmer thing screwed up my head. Because I was in like 6th grade when that happened, and I was a kid who loved horror movies. I had a pretty wild imagination. And I told my cousin I was scared, and I asked him, what if this murderer escapes from jail, and what if he comes and kills me? And my cousin said, you don't have to worry about that, he only kills gay dudes. And I said, oh. And then proceeded to ask myself, what if I'm gay? Right? And what you gotta understand is that's the first time that thought had ever crossed my mind. Which means to this day, I can't be entirely certain if my heterosexuality is the product of nature, or if Jeffrey Dahmer scared me straight. And I'll admit, it does put a little dent in my psyche, knowing Jeffrey Dahmer possibly played a critical role in my psychosexual development. Not that I would have a problem with being gay if I were, by the way. Let me say that now. I celebrate everybody's lifestyle. I just want everyone to be happy. And I think guys gotta even stop giving each other a hard time by using gay as an insult all the time. You know, I think we do that too much. And I'm not even saying stop entirely. Just save it for when it actually applies. I think that's fair. I'll give you an example. I was at a barbecue restaurant with a friend of mine, and I don't like getting real messy when I eat, so I was using a fork. And predictably, my friend called me gay for that. You know, and yeah, I get it. I grew up in the 80s. Manners are so gay, you know. Let's leave that thinking behind. There's nothing inherently sexual about using silverware. But do you know how my friend proceeded to clean off his fingers? Yeah, if any of you haven't arrived at the image mentally, yeah, deep throating each and every one of them. all of them in there at once, every train in the tunnel. And now that I legitimately found to be pretty gay. Because I was extremely turned on. I'm just sitting there like, are you kidding me? How have you never mentioned having no gag reflex before? Maybe Jeffrey Dahmer really did take something away from me. I just don't even know what to tell you, all right? It was hot and impressive. The entire fist was in there. I spilled a bowl of sauce on my lap. It was like, hey, me next. So I guess what I'd like you to take away from this is, let's pull back on the casual homophobia, but also don't be a cock tease. Use a napkin. Don't make mouth promises you're not prepared to fulfill. That's being a bad friend. In spite of being from Milwaukee, I don't drink anymore. It's been a year and a half, a little over, since my last drink. Thank you, it feels good. I was starting to suspect I was drinking too much, and I think I knew that something was wrong when I didn't want to talk about drinking on stage anymore. Because I started to realize I can't talk about how much I'm drinking, and then if I do something dumb while I'm drunk, that's going to look really bad. I can't keep drinking like this and joking about it. So I stopped joking about it. And I know that was the wrong choice, but the jokes weren't as funny as the drinking was socially convenient. And then I got a DUI. And man, I wish those jokes had been funnier. That would have really been helpful. But fortunately, it did make it very easy to quit drinking after that, so that's one good thing that came out of it. And Wisconsin's got this kind of attitude. This is what I'm coming from. A lot of people in Wisconsin are like, oh, you quit drinking after one DUI? That's all it took? Quitter? I mean, it wasn't the first time I drove drunk, you know? It was just I finally got caught. I knew it was a bad thing. I guess there's a statistic that says the average person drives impaired 80 times before getting arrested. So really, the lesson there is I should have been keeping better track. I could have sworn I was only in the low 70s, but yeah, it's nice now. I think some people realize they don't need to drink to have fun, and I've accepted the fact that I just don't need to have fun. It's really made my life a lot simpler. I have no FOMO whatsoever anymore. You know, have you ever gone to a party and not drank? You're not missing out on anything. I do feel, I'm so over drinking now, I feel bad calling myself sober. That almost feels like stolen valor, because I didn't have to go to meetings or anything. I just finally was able to walk away from it. You know, I feel like me calling myself sober is like when a bowler calls themselves an athlete. I'm like, no, you just have a drinking problem. But my friends haven't been entirely supportive of it, so I'm glad I'm resolved. One of my friends actually tries to get me to drink again. That's not really cool. We were hanging out, and he was like, I don't understand why you can't just drink and then drive after work. And I was like, where were you 2 years ago with that brilliant strategy? What are you doing? This is the stuff you could be saying when you're sitting there slurping on your fingers. Be a better friend. We were hanging out at a party, and I was having a soda. He comes up to me, he's like, you know that? It's actually worse for you than beer. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to start early and drink an entire case of these. You know what's something I've never done? I've never drank so much Dr. Pepper. I almost T-boned a cop. But unfortunately, I can't say that about Miller High Life anymore. So soda may be worse for me, but it's better for everybody else, and that's what I stick to. I decided I was going to quit drinking pretty much right away while I was still in jail, which is a pretty cool place to make a life-altering decision, right? I can't beat that. I was like, I never want to come back to this. Jail was rough. I was in lockup for less than 24 hours, and I couldn't even make it through that without having to suck a dick. Yeah, and let me tell you, that wasn't easy because I was in solitary. I was like, jail is so boring. That's what I do. I almost broke my neck. Which has me thinking, maybe Epstein wasn't trying to kill himself. Did that make it all the way around the room yet? Maybe they found it that way. And they were like, hey, let's say this was a bed sheet in the report, because I don't want to write this up. I'm a single person. My last girlfriend broke up with me because she said I'm too pretentious. I'm fairly certain she meant condescending. I can be a little pretentious, I'll own up to that. One time she walked in on me and I was reading a book of existential philosophy. She rolled her eyes at that. She was like, oh my God, are you for real? I was like, that is what I'm trying to figure out right now. I think that's the moment our relationship stopped being for real. But I'm dating again. I'm trying to do all the moves I've never done before. Like I just did this one for the first time. I just submitted my first work of cellular crotch photography. We all know what I'm saying there. Pretty classy way of phrasing it. But I made a mistake and I forgot to reverse the camera on my cell phone. So what she ended up getting from me was actually a pic from the dick's perspective. Sounds like a pretty good exhibit at the art gallery, doesn't it? Coming this spring, pics from the dick's perspective. What the Cyclops saw. She messaged me about that pretty quickly. She was like, why did you send me a picture of your roommate driving? I was like, because the landlord needs to fix the lock on the bathroom door. That's why. I'm not a very kinky person. That makes it kind of hard dating. Everyone's a freak these days, you know? I wish I was into something weird. I wish I was into necrophiliacs, right? Because I heard they are willing to sleep with men who are under 6 feet. I'm going to open my water for that one. Oh, God. I needed a longer laugh to get that water out. We can share the blame on that one. I was dating someone who was pretty kinky for a while, and she was trying to open me up. She was like, look, I will fulfill any fantasy. Just give me something. And I was like, well, how about we do it on consecutive nights? She was like, think bigger. And I was like, I'll try. You know, you got to take advantage of this. I hopped on Pornhub. I did a little browsing, a little sampling. I came back to her. I was like, all right, I think I got something. All right, I think this can work. All we got to do is figure out how we're going to get your mom to marry my dad. It would really turn me on to feel like a family again. And I am a former teacher. Give it up for that. Former. That's right. I made it out of there. That's not easy to do. Once education gets its hooks in you, it's tough, you know. I had to figure out a way to set aside my ego and admit the best thing I could do for those kids was turn around and walk out of their lives for good. Because I wasn't cut out to be a teacher. I'm a terrible authority figure. I learned that pretty quickly. I always had a really hard time telling my students no, especially when they asked if I was trying to buy weed. Because look at me, of course I was. Also, I was kind of relying on the discount they would trade me for a passing grade. My C's for J's program. I think smoking pot actually made me a better teacher, though. I have evidence to support that. I noticed right around the time I started getting high, all of my students' grades drastically improved. I don't know what changed, but suddenly their essays weren't so hard to read anymore. I was like, oh, I get it. You know, that's actually the first time a student ever gave me an apple, and I turned it into a pipe and got high out of that much. A good thing for a bit. But I couldn't hang as a full-time teacher. I took a step back and became a substitute teacher. It's a better fit for me. That let me still work with kids, but I also got to never see those kids again. It's finally free to just drift in and out of their lives like an uncle dabbling in sobriety. Just as much expectation to remember their names. Kind of a perfect gig. And it's good practice for being a stand-up comedian, because no audience of adults is ever going to be able to get in my head the way a classroom of kids could. And I want to say right now, people give kids too much credit for being these genius roasters. They're really not. But what kids have is the tenacity to mash together every conceivable combination of words until they find the one pairing that will rip your soul right out of your body. Which a student did find with me one time. This kid who was running around the classroom being a menace, asked if he would just take a seat, and he told me to shut my mouth. You grilled cheese bitch. Look, I'm getting punched in the stomach every time I say it. Give me a second here. There's no way that kid could have known how devastating that insult would be against me. Because guess what, everyone? Turns out the grilled cheese is my favorite sandwich. And since that day, I haven't been able to eat one without feeling like a bitch. That was the day I quit being a sub, because I was like, if the next kid calls me a BLTS, I'm going to have nothing left to live for. I got to keep one good sandwich in my life. I'm going to leave you guys with this one. And let me just say thank you. Give it up for yourselves. You've been a great audience. I love getting to do this. I love doing comedy. I will admit, I do get jealous of musicians. I know that's the cooler type of entertainer. That's something I've had to come to terms with. When a musician does everything right on stage, it's so cool. Everyone in the audience wants to be them. When a comedian does everything right on stage, no one in the audience wants to be us. This is why musicians get groupies and comedians have to settle for strained relationships. Sometimes I get booked to perform with bands, and that's an impossible energy for me to compete with. One summer, I got a gig at a county fair, and that's pretty exciting because I knew there could be a lot of people there. But when I showed up, I found out I was going to have to go up following a Journey tribute act. You can appreciate how screwed I am, right? How am I supposed to do that? You know how many people who go to county fairs love Journey? All of them. And you know how many people who go to county fairs have no idea who I am? Exactly, another 100%, full overlap. So I knew if I couldn't get up there and hook the audience's attention immediately, they were all just going to hit the corn dog stand on me. You know, it's going to be me up there in front of an empty tent, and that's not what I want. So I'm really racking my brain. What can I say to get them? And I was watching the band perform. They were really good. Like, I'll admit, Journey's greatest hits better than my best jokes. I can admit that. But these guys didn't write those songs, so cut me a little bit of slack, you know? I'm an artist. I write all my own stuff. I thought I was screwed, but right before the band played their last song, the singer dedicated it to his stepson, and I was like, oh, I got it. I know exactly what to say. This is going to be so good. I went up, I said, give it up for the band one more time. They were incredible. Can you believe that guy's a stepdad and performs in a cover band? What's happening here? Does he just refuse to compose original material? That's a lie, right? That got everyone paying attention. I ended up having a good set. I felt like a win. But then I made the classic mistake of lingering on the fairgrounds. And I happened to run into fake Steve Perry. And I learned in that instant that musicians are more sensitive to roasting than all of my comedy friends. Because he did not look happy. He came right at me, like a midnight train going anywhere. I gotta write most of my own stuff. And he didn't say a word. He just hit me with one of those dad pokes to the chest. Suppose in this case it was a stepdad poke to the chest. And he said, hey, I didn't like you talking about me up there. How would you feel if I got on stage and I performed a song about what a bad comedian you are? And I said, well, you would absolutely be free to do that and it would hurt my feelings. But first, someone else would have to write in and record that song. That's the time I got the cover band singers twice. Thank y'all very much. Happy Chris Schmidt. You number Jack. Woo!
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.
Keep it going for Chris Schmidt, everybody.